At the start of Black Ops 2, the Victus crew was introduced with two of the most heavily criticized maps of all time, Transit and Die Rise. But then came Mob of the Dead, a fan favorite that set a new standard. Returning to the Victus crew for the third DLC, Treyarch needed something to redeem them, and with Buried, they delivered. While Mob of the Dead redefined the series, Buried served as the perfect farewell to old school zombies, blending classic elements with new mechanics to create the best experience the Victus crew has had yet. Buried has a pretty unique setting that mainly takes place in an old western ghost town that's just a little bit underground, likely due to the events of Moon. However, the spawn room, which I assume is a mining facility that the town was built around, contrasts with the rest of the map. It's not as cluttered and is the only area where you can still see the destruction of the world. Even though the map takes place during the day, the falling rocks, blowing dust, and the massive crater keep it from feeling out of place and give a sense of isolation. Once you drop into the main portion of the map is where you can really appreciate the map's western aesthetic, from the prison where Leroy is locked up, to the rundown church and courthouse, and the saloon and candy shop that allow you to buy items. Every building makes the town feel as if it was lived in before the breakout. And I can't forget the haunted mansion. That adds a creepy vibe with the ghosts that stare at you through the window. Something that I never noticed before and only found out about when I was recording footage for this was that the ghosts actually talk to you, which just adds to the creepiness of the mansion. Personally, one of my favorite aesthetics is the sunlight piercing through the holes in the ceiling. It reminds me of Kino when the ceiling kind of falls after turning on the power. Despite the mostly brown color palette and rubble all over the place, the updated HUD and the new round change music, as well as the mix of lighting from the lanterns and the sunlight, adds a lot of depth and helps Buried stand out and feel unique among the other maps. To complement Buried's western theme, they swapped the Python revolver for the Remington New Model Army. It's essentially the same weapon, but with the added bonus of reloading all 6 bullets at once instead of individually. I think it would have been cool if upgrading it made it dual wield, but it's still a decent weapon that was a nice addition to the map. My favorite part about it is that pickup animation. I wish that animation replayed when putting the weapon away so you could keep seeing it. It would have just added even more to the cool factor of the weapon. On the topic of weapons, Buried also introduced Ray Gun Mark II and the Paralyzer. The Mark II was added to every map, though it's pretty rare outside any map not named Buried. It's a fantastic weapon that's a 3-round burst with little to no splash damage. Then we have the Paralyzer, the map's wonder weapon. Like older maps, the only way to obtain it was through the mystery box. While yes, Mob of the Dead's wonder weapon was also in the box, there was a quest that allowed you to get it for free. This ended up being a common staple with future map where you can complete a quest to guarantee yourself the wonder weapon. Here, it sticks to the old school style. Unlike every other Black Ops 2 map, you have to hit the box and hope you get lucky. I love the Paralyzer's design. It mixes sci-fi with classic elements like the dial that shows how close you are to overheating or the gears turning on the side. The animation of pulling a lever to open and close the weapon when swapping to and from it adds even more personality to it. It's small details like this that I really appreciate and make it stand out within the map. Buried also introduced a new utility item, the Time Bomb. It's a simple concept. You throw it down to create a save point of the current round, and when you activate it, you revert back to that moment with all the weapons and points you had back then. The doors you opened after placing the bomb, however, stay open. While useful in theory, I find the Time Bomb a bit underwhelming. Its primary use seems to be for setting up in the early rounds. For example, drop the bomb, open as much of the map as possible, then revert back to get everything open for free. There are 2 issues I see with this though. First, you need to be lucky enough to pull the Time Bomb from the box early on, and the second one being that it loses its value in later rounds. It's mostly a safety net to get you back on your feet after going down, but since it rewinds you to an earlier round, it feels like you've made 0 progress because you have to replay everything over again. To improve the Time Bomb for later rounds, I think it would have been better if it allowed you to create a loadout save for everything you currently have equipped. For example, if you have the Ray Gun Mark II, a Pack-a-Punch weapon, and 5 perks, you could save this loadout for future use. If you run out of ammo or go down in a much later round, you could then use the Time Bomb to restore that saved loadout to the round that you are currently on. I think this would make the Time Bomb a more useful item no matter the game state you're in. Do you want to rewind time to an earlier round to set up? Or do you want to save your loadout for a critical moment later on? The only drawback to this change would be the introduction of the new perk Vulture and its ability to provide ammo and points, which makes it much easier to avoid having to change weapons, which would still make the new Time Bomb not that useful and just a way to get your perks back quickly. Vulture is a great utility perk, offering small but useful bonuses like highlighting the mystery box and perk machines. Its most important feature is the green gas that some zombies drop, allowing you to hide in it like a temporary in plain sight. While I don't think it's as powerful as Electric Cherry, it can definitely save you in a pinch, and while it only exists on this map, I think even on a more challenging map, Full Trade would still be worth considering picking up. Full Trade is just one of the many elements that help simplify the map, and Buried overall does a great job at introducing players to its new features. For example, in the spawn room, the LSAT wall buy encourages players to make the jump for it, and even if you miss it, you're forced to slide down into the rest of the map. It's a clever way of guiding players without explicitly telling them what to do. Once you slide down, you'll be drawn towards the chalk marks on the wall. The question marks and filled out wall buys make it clear you can pick up the weapon and place it anywhere with a question mark. After this, you'll eventually find yourself in the jail with Leroy locked up. The glowing skull key by the door implies that it's used to free him, and once you're trapped with him in the building, the shining booze teaches you that using it will make Leroy destroy obstacles. The map does a great job of moving players forward, while teaching them new mechanics at the same time. The chalk mechanic is interesting because it rewards the player without any downsides. It gives a free 1000 points and flexibility of weapon location. To better balance this, I think it would have been better if, like normal, you can initially buy a wall weapon, and then through either a side easter egg or chalk location, be able to turn them into portable wall buys that would let you put them at different locations but for a cheaper price for the effort. I think this would help balance the surplus of points that are easily accessible throughout the map. Leroy is probably the most ambitious feature of Buried. For the first time, we have a non-playable ally who helps out. Give him booze to destroy barriers, or candy for a variety of useful effects. While booze is straightforward, candy works more like Moon's hacker device. By giving it to Leroy, he can go nutty and become your bodyguard, reroll the mystery box, or even hold a crawler so it doesn't bleed out. One of the best features is when you give Leroy candy near a workbench, he'll gather all parts and build a machine for you. This makes up for the fact that Buried reverted from Mob of the Dead system of holding all parts at once and make you have to run back and forth again. My only gripe with Leroy is that while training, he can follow you around, and if you accidentally hit him, he locks himself back in the jail, which forces you to search for the key again. It would have been nice to keep the key at all times, but it's not a huge issue. The setup process on the map can get tedious after repeated playthroughs, as you'll spend a lot of time running back and forth getting Leroy to do what you need. Interestingly enough though, you don't even have to rely on Leroy. With the Paralyzer, you can fly over obstacles and access most of the map. While certain areas are still locked, you can reach Pack-a-Punch without his help. This adds a layer of choice. You can embrace the map's complexity or play it more casually like older maps by ignoring Leroy. Speaking of older map, Buried brings back PhD Flopper as a perma-perk, which is a bit strange since it was teased in both Mob of the Dead and Die Rise, but only appears here as a phantom perk. Personally, I think they should have just brought back the machine as a regular perk to balance its power by taking up one of your slots. PhD paired with Mustang and Sally is incredibly strong, and while I get why it was removed in later maps to avoid repetitive gameplay, it's fun to return to that Black Ops 1 playstyle again, and I wouldn't mind if it returned every now and then. Overall, Buried is as complex as you want it to be. It offers a casual friendly experience that feels more like the older maps compared to the more modern zombies we have now. After Mob of the Dead, maps started becoming more complex by adding side easter eggs or quests to deepen their gameplay, while Mob introduced tools like the Hell's Redeemer and the Golden Spork to expand your options. Buried felt more like a Black Ops 1 map and didn't offer much in terms of side content beyond a couple of ways to earn free perks. The first method is simple. Every 4 to 5 rounds, you can pass through the haunted mansion, and if the lights are on in the window, you can kill all the witches inside to earn a free perk. Unlike maps like Ascension, where you had to defend perks from monkeys, or Shangri-La, where timing your monkey kill was key, Buried's so-called challenge was straightforward. The witches don't actually harm you, they just steal points, making it a very easy way to gain perks. The second method is more unique though. You need to get a bullseye with the ballistic knife in the saloon, then tip the witch playing the piano with 10 points to earn another essentially free perk. The Easter egg ties nicely into the map's theme of a haunted old western town, especially with the connection between the ghost piano playing in the saloon and the witch playing in the mansion. While Mob of the Dead was the catalyst that pushed the series forward, making maps bigger and more complex, but before fully diving into the modern age of zombies, Treyarch gave us Buried, a perfect blend of the classic Black Ops 1 style maps with a touch of modern complexity that would come later on. It keeps things simple, like a box wonder weapon and a simple way to get free perks. It also introduces new elements like Leroy and the candy to add depth. While I do find Buried a bit too easy, with strategies like camping at Juggernog with the subsurface resonator and the different ways to earn free points, the map still manages to stay engaging. In many ways, Buried served as a farewell to the old school style of zombies. It shows us that not every map needs to be overly complicated to be good, and for that, I think it deserves some praise for being different.